Hey, good evening, and welcome to our Arts Educator Leadership Conversation, sponsored by YubaSutterArts&Culture. I'm David Reed, and this is the third in a series of casual conversations with community leaders on a variety of subjects. Tonight's subject is one that, of course, is very near and dear to our hearts here at YubaSutterArts, and that's arts education. First thing, though, we'd like to follow the example being set by arts and culture leaders around the country with what's called a land acknowledgement statement. Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture likes to carry forward a practice of recognizing the original caretakers of these sacred lands throughout Northern California. We offer gratitude to these indigenous ancestors and present-day relations of the Maidu and Nisenan tribes of Yuba Sutter. We acknowledge their stewardship of these lands over the many centuries and are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands. So what's the difference between a teacher and an educator? I wasn't sure, so I actually looked it up to get ready for this evening. And I like this explanation. This is a quote. When compared with educator, teacher merely refers to a job title. Teacher is a person who teaches in a school, but an educator is a person who educates students. A good teacher can be called an educator. And this is the main difference between educator and teacher at Yuba Sutter Arts. So what about educator? That's someone who's skilled in teaching, a teacher and a student of the theory and practice of education. And education, well, isn't it just the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits? Okay, that's enough of a word ramble. Let's meet our star-studded lineup of guests. Meet Alexandra Sprouse, River Valley High School visual arts educator. Matt Demerit, Marysville Charter Academy for the Arts theater educator. Pam Novak, Yuba City High School visual arts educator and art department lead. Joe Moy, early childhood arts education specialist, actor, musician, chalk artist, poet, many other things. All of these folks are multi-talented, I should point out. Rebecca Hood-Sava, music educator, Marysville Charter Academy for the Arts and Yuba College, and an outstanding cellist. And I think she plays a couple of other string instruments too, now that I think of it. Michelle Gonzalez, Wheatland High School English, literary arts educator, poetry out loud advocate, and Interact Club mentor. And Alex Cecina, live from Boston, Massachusetts, former performing arts educator for the Young Americans International Touring Ensemble, and currently an instructor for Arthur Murray Dance Studios in Boston. I should point out that we really wanted to make certain that all forms of art were part of this conversation. I think we did a pretty good job. Visual arts, literary arts, performing arts are all represented here this evening. We know that arts budgets at all levels are always being challenged, and I suspect that during the pandemic, this hasn't gotten any better, but we'll discuss that later, and let's get started. So how about a quick round robin icebreaker question? So in a minute or less, why did you become a teacher? And I'll let anybody jump in that wants to start.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I became a teacher because I was on disability. I had injured my back in industry and was home with my 4-year-old child and started volunteering with Head Start at preschool level and discovered I could do that and have been doing it for about 25 years now. So that's how I got there.
When I was very young, there were 3 professions that I wanted to be: an astronaut, a clown, and a teacher. So I would set up my stuffed animals, and as an only child, I entertained myself teaching my stuffed animals.
I love it. I love it.
That's great. Well, both of my parents were teachers, and I didn't want to be a teacher because I looked at how hard they worked day in and day out. One was a music teacher, one was an artist English teacher. And it's only after I started working in schools as a teacher aide and a paraprofessional that I saw how amazing it was to see that light bulb go on, and I got hooked. So I'm back to school and I got my credential, and I actually had a credential for elementary and secondary in art, and I just never looked back.
Fantastic.
Oh, I could go next. I actually worked for the state for a few years and then realized I didn't want to just have a job the rest of my life. I wanted to do something that I would want to do for the rest of my life. And I really liked training interns and just seeing their faces sort of when that clicked, when whatever I was teaching them made sense. And I realized, well, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I went back to school to get my credential, and I've been teaching now for 3 years.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Michelle.
Well, I'll tell the good story and the true story. The good story is one day in college, one of my professors had me do a presentation on Moliere, the French neoclassical playwright. Gave that presentation to the class, and she said, "That was excellent. You should be a teacher." And then I didn't think about that again for about a year and a half until someone offered me a teaching job, and I said, "Oh, I'd very much like to make a paycheck." So I continued with teaching, and then realized I loved it. The paycheck was a big draw. Being a performing artist, consistency was huge, but very quickly the realization that making an enormous impact in young people's lives and in sharing my passion for the arts drew me to do it for my career. And 20 years have passed, and I love it.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Rebecca.
So my mother is a teacher and my father is a singer. So I guess both my sister and I became music educators. But I became inspired by Dr. Suzuki's mission. So I'm a Suzuki cello and violin teacher. And so Suzuki is a philosophy of making better people through music, teaching music like a language. And his idea was a bit of a pacifist idea that if everyone had music in their lives, then they would be peaceful and never want war, as he had gone through the war as a Japanese man, and he saw some terrible things. So I thought that was really inspiring whenever I heard that statement. And I thought, that's what I want to do, is I want to make better people in the world by adding music to their lives. And I know it sounds really idealistic, but that is my mission in the world, that having music as a part of your life. And when I practice, when I play, I feel so much better. I feel so much energy coming from vibrations that I feel like I want to spread that love. So that's why I became a teacher. I started by a Suzuki teacher and then got recruited to Marysville Arts Academy. And I love being able to reach a demographic that wouldn't necessarily, a lot of Suzuki students, you have to pay for private lessons and stuff. So it's a different type of demographic that's able to afford that or even has the thought to do that. So being able to reach a larger clientele, so to speak, is really wonderful in a public setting. And of course, I'm at Yuba College right now, and also love teaching there because that's the higher level, but also a different demographic, so a different age group.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rebecca. Alex?
Yeah, I guess it's up to me now. So I keep accidentally being a teacher. So initially I just kind of was going through high school. I know I always wanted to be an actor. And then I had the honor to go to Faith Christian High School and be taught by Paul Demerit, Matt's father. And I grew up in their summer theater program. And eventually, at some point, you do it enough that he kind of is like, hey, you want to be like a director and stuff? And I was like, sure. And that ended up being like, oh, I'm directing, yes, but I have to actually teach these kids. And so that was the first kind of teaching moment. And then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then I kind of left for a little bit. And then I went back and I was like, oh, I want to be a performer. There's this group that's kind of traveling around and they get to perform all over the world. Sounds good. Well, little did I know they also taught children when they traveled around the world. So I joined the Young Americans, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have to teach now. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm going to be a teacher then while I'm traveling around the world. And then I left the Young Americans and I was kind of in school for a little bit. And then I was like, going to go to Boston, going to be an actor, going to do this. And then I got a job teaching ballroom dance. So I keep accidentally running into teaching and different types of art instruction. So I think
it's not an accident.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of meant to be at this point. Yeah, so I've taught everything from elementary students to full-grown CEOs and adults. So it's just, I guess I'm going to be a teacher in some way, shape, or form.
Man, that's great. That's great. So thank you all. Great way to get things rolling. So what do you think are the ingredients vital for learning to occur? And this can be general, whether it's classroom or virtual. What's that secret sauce, those ingredients to make it happen? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think the first step is relationships. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The content we're teaching is completely arbitrary, but building the relationships with students and helping them feel recognized, acknowledged, and lifted up to an opportunity to experience something new, something that they're partaking for the first time. That's where learning occurs.
Great.
I like to see engagement. You know, you can tell when they're mailing it in, when they're just sitting there listening. Actually, the whole dozing off thing's a good sign that they're not really engaged. But with the young children, I know when they're engaged, when they're with me, they're learning. They remember because they'll ask me about it again later, or they'll recollect things, and you could tell they were there with you and paying attention. Whereas there's other times you're trying your best to teach, but there's nothing going on. There's no connection, and there is no engagement. And I don't think they learn at all when there's no engagement. So.
No, not at all. Well, I have to say too that in the area that we're in, you have to make it seem fun and easy and take away the fear.
Yeah.
Because we teach teenagers, and you teach all ages and levels. Little kids, they just jump right in. And I remember teaching second grade and doing art, and there was no hesitation. When you look at a 13-year-old and say, you're going to draw the animal of your choice and watercolor it. And they're going, no, not at all. You have kids who it's art, and we love art, but they're going to drag their feet 50% of the time. So you have to make it fun.
I like the connecting and the engagement with what's going on with them personally and what's going on in reality. I think art can be a very grounding and therapeutic activity. And a lot of times I think kids, they disengage because they don't feel relevant or they don't feel connected. So I really like that, that personal relationship that was brought up in that engagement, and then kind of getting them down to earth and having them to do some like conceptual digging.
That's great. Rebecca, did you have?
Yes, I was going to say. Well, I was going to say the engagement as well, but I think showing them that they can be successful with something very complicated, which is a little bit of what some other people were saying, where they're engaged when they feel successful. So, for example, playing a violin or a cello is pretty complicated, I have to say. But the approach is all about making it easy and making it fun, which is what Tom was saying. So it's a lot of what you guys are all talking about. But that moment which is a teaching moment, whenever you see someone light up because they know they sound good, they know that they've connected to the arts in a way that can never be replaced. Like they have just felt it, that they have the vibrations of a beautiful sound coming out of their instrument. That's engagement, and that's something that hopefully will stay with them for the rest of their life. In my syllabus, I say, whether you play for the next 5 minutes or the next 50 years, I hope that you'll find a place for music in the rest of your life. And if you just had that moment of, oh, this is pretty cool, then they're going to respect how hard it is to like when they go and see a performer. Someone who hasn't had music in their lives, like they look at a YouTuber and they're like, oh, I can do that, and it's not the case. As I know all of you guys know, having had to work towards things, and it's something I think we'll get into this, but it's just such an important, tangible experience, especially right now, that we need to be able to feel what this hard work is and this discipline that an art is, in any art. It's not just something we can roll out of bed and do.
That's great.
I was going to say flexibility, because a lot of times, like, we have our curriculums planned, we think we have this awesome lesson plan, and then it just doesn't connect with certain students. And being able to acknowledge that, okay, this didn't work, and willing to rework it to help reach the students that need it, I think is vital for learning. I think students appreciate it when they see you acknowledge, hey, I get that this wasn't something you guys understood 100%, and I'm okay with doing it all over again in a different way. Like, the problem's not you, it was just the lesson didn't work. And I think when students see that you are willing to work with them, they're more willing to buy into whatever you're saying.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm kind of on the same. I mean, everyone, yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. But like, I definitely think that the personal connection, like the flexibility and creating like how it relates to them, is just super important, because like art's not going to be everyone's like main focus in life. Not everyone wants to become the next Puccini or whatever, you know. So how that skill directly relates to something else that they're passionate about or something. So like whether that's being a using your acting skills to create a better speech for when you're in front of business clients, or whether having a moment to express yourself after a long stressful day as a lawyer through some type of music and stuff like that, relating it back and letting them figure out how it best creates that connection to them. It just makes that bond so much easier. And I think they hold on to it more that way.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. So how's it going in general, you know, specific to teaching the arts in a virtual environment? You've all been in the classroom for years, and now our world's got turned upside down this year. How's it going? Any general comments or specifics?
Well, we are losing some kids.
Yeah, talk about that. I've heard bits and pieces of that story.
The principal at Marysville, Rocco Greco, was mentioning that we have twice as many D's and F's as we usually do. And actually, I was in a meeting today, and we covered 3 times as many failing students. And it's unfortunate. It requires kids not only to have the technology, which, you know, we do provide Chromebooks, we do provide hotspots, we do provide alternative forms of assessment if they can't do the technology, but creating that internal structure of being able to get up in the morning and have a space where, you know, you're serious and you're focused and you're dedicated is really hard for a lot of kids. And it's hard for parents too, because they may work at night. They may not be up at, you know, 7 a.m. or whatever time it requires for the kids to log in. That being said, I think we're also having a lot of success in areas that we wouldn't in-person learning. For example, last term or last year, a student that I'd worked with for 2 years and had mentioned to his counselor and support providers that he was struggling with reading, wasn't acknowledged as not being able to read until we went on distance learning. And then I got an email saying, have you ever had to read to this student? Like, I've been telling you.
Wow.
You
my
can't
gosh.
read. So we do spend a lot more time with words and reading and writing and thinking and speaking. Not always the kids are speaking, but I do a lot more lecture than I do in person. So they're getting more art slides, more, you know, like I brought up the conceptual digging, which with our new standards is pretty prevalent. So there are some good aspects too, but we are losing some kids.
You know, I think one aspect that has been particularly complicated for me is I believe that artistic pursuit for students, especially in middle and high school, is a lot about intrinsic motivation, the desire to learn something new, sparking that interest, and then pursuing it because it makes you feel good, because it inspires you. And one complicated element with distance learning in particular is the way that we are doing, and I'm sure everyone will smirk as I say this, the engagement log process, having to log all of the hours that our students are spending with us in classroom and attaching assignments to each of that. So as a teacher for years and years, I told my students first day of class, grades are kind of beside the point right now. I want to help you grow. I want to help you create art. You will get a grade, but if you play the game right, then it's going to be a good grade and we're going to learn to do art. But now there's a grade every single class period for a lot of our work. We're having to assign point value to work that is now transactional. And the transactional element is really what we used to be able to move aside. That may have been happening in other classes, but it was really about the relational. And that's tough. Now, that said, I do feel that the arts give students an opportunity to move away from what they're typically doing in distance learning right now, because a number of us are still on distance learning, and do something a little bit more silly, a little bit more sort of nonsensical. I mean, being a drama teacher, we do warm-ups, we do theater games, we do improvisation, we're taking, weird little risks and whatnot together. And that's been really cool in this little weird vacuum of being in an empty room with a camera pointing at you. So there's positives and negatives.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Sorry.
yeah. How about music, Rebecca?
Well, again, there's positives and negatives. So in MJSD, we meet weekly as a music team and discuss, and it's really wonderful to just have all of my colleagues to discuss, like, what are you guys doing? What kind of software are you? So, we're learning all kinds of amazing software, which is really, really fascinating to see what's out there and what's possible. And, one, I'm not sure if this is positive or negative, but I really think that the world and education is changing as a result of this year. And I see everybody agreeing because just like to the point that you both were already making, and I'm sure everybody else would agree that virtual learning makes a lot more on the individual, a lot more pressure on the individual to show up and do their job, which is a lot more like college class. So since I teach at the college, we have, all the online learning as well at the college, but that's just a different experience in music. So the one thing that's good is that individual, like my private lessons, Zoom works really well. It works actually really great. So one-on-one, you can make it work, but we don't have an ensemble element. And that's the one thing that I think all of you guys might be able to realize that it's really hard to do virtually. And I'm just starting some projects to do a virtual orchestra for the end of the semester for a few classes. But I have to learn how to do it myself, right? So, but that's where we're talking about engaging and where we're talking about a relationship that several of you guys have talked about. A lot of the team element, the kind of team sport that an orchestra or a theater group, or you're not getting that as much as you usually get. So the kids have to show up. And what all of my colleagues in the district are doing, as well as I am, is focusing on individual playing a lot this semester and this year, is individual work, which makes us much better individually, which is great. And then when you have to play virtually, you're actually not playing together at the same time. You're playing your part all by yourself, and then you record it, and we're going to stack it on top of each other. So there's different strengths and weaknesses of that. That means that the individual has to be much better, right? But you're not getting that, hey, the rest of the team is pulling you along, right? So.
Yeah, for early childhood education, it's a bit of a problem. I know Head Start has reduced their class sizes from 17 to 4. So that means that there's 13 kids that aren't going to school. And young children, they learn their social cues and stuff at preschool level. So, we're gonna have a struggle there when they do make it into kindergarten, first grade. There's going to be a lot of confusion for them to learn rules and social cues and things like that. There won't be a whole lot of art instruction going on. And it's sad because at my level, it is so much fun because typically all you have to do is introduce the materials and then turn them loose. They'll engage all by themselves. 4-year-olds love to get messy. They love to do art, paint, Play-Doh, all of that stuff. And the thing is they're all at home with their parents or their caregivers. They're not in school. So I'm not sure if the caregivers know how to make Play-Doh or are willing to let a child get covered in paint. which is totally okay with me. If you feel like painting yourself, you go right ahead. We can clean you up. But that is how they explore and learn the medium, the different ways of using. You teach them to use the tools of art, and then send them forward to you guys, the elementary school and the high school teachers, to refine their skills that they learned at our level. So it is very sad. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the kids that are missing out this year on their first experience with school.
Sure. Anybody else on that one? Or you've pointed out some of those differences between online and in-school art instruction, and the ups, the pluses and minuses, and I know we've experienced that at YubaSutterArts&Culture with what we do with our various programs. So you balance those two out. So do you think brick and mortar education will become a thing of the past?
No.
No way? No way?
No.
I just think
Yeah.
maybe at the high school, it's going to change, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, there have been distance learning programs for many, many years that I know the military, University of Maryland started distance learning programs way back when for service members, and all those different platforms have been out there. But that's, adults who are theoretically more disciplined and able to self-manage and do that kind of thing. So, all right, so we need to be back in the classrooms. Rebecca?
Oh, I was just going to say, the reason why I was kind of alluding to that was a lot of my seniors, like for some reason, I have a lot of seniors this year. I have like 7 seniors, which is unusual in my classes. And last spring, when this first, the quarantine really happened, I saw a lot of, the seniors that I had, or the upperclassmen, really checked out. And unfortunately, the education system was not quite prepared for what we needed to do, of course, and it was a process. It was just where we were at. And so a lot of the seniors now, I keep asking people, okay, so we're planning to go back. Who's planning to come back in session? And it's really surprising to me to see who really wants to come back. I think somebody said a little earlier, they're so excited. Maybe we were chatting before, that they were so excited to go back to school. I was hoping that all the kids would be so excited to come back to school that, ready to see their friends. And so I thought that would change. They'd be super excited. But a lot of them say, well, now I can get school done in half the amount of time. So most of my seniors have jobs, or they're doing other things, and they're starting to progress into work. And one idea, maybe it's for another time, but in most of Europe and the rest of the world, high school is actually optional. Most people still go to high school, but they compete for high school. And so it's just 8th grade is mandatory. And then for the high schools, they're focus high schools, like we have an arts high school. And then so they really want to go to high school. So it's a very different demographic. When I was going to school, everybody didn't want to go to high school, just like somebody else was saying. And it was just what you to fit into the mold, you would say, oh yeah, high school is, I don't know, I have to go. I wish I didn't have to go to school and things. And you're like, you don't understand what you would be doing if you're not in school right now. And I tell
you're making the case for career technical education, right?
Well, it's complicated. There are some kids that would do better if they just went into the workforce. And then there are other kids that would do much better if everybody else was engaged and ready to learn. So I'm making that case that, those kids that calculus is not really for them, but they should probably, if they're wanting to be a mechanic, I did have a student, he wanted to be a mechanic, and he's like, I don't want to do calculus, So that's where I think education can change. And
this question does open up a pretty enormous can of worms beyond just the arts classroom, because I think over the last year we've also saw some of the goalposts for the average high achieving student change a little bit. The SATs coming into question for college admission, GPAs coming into question for college admission. I think there is going to be
excuse me, Matt, that's for this year? I hadn't heard that. Because of COVID?
Colleges are making decisions on a case-by-case basis. I've heard that the UCs have done away with some of those testing requirements or changed them slightly, allowed other things to stand in place of those, depending on what the student is choosing. And that's actually something that's been on the chopping block for a while now. The UC has been looking at getting rid of that. And I think what that does is it creates a perspective for young people about whether or not they want to continue through that fairly high stakes experience of high school in the same way. I agree with Rebecca. I have had a number of seniors talk to me about the fact that, yeah, even if I'm allowed to come back, I don't think I'm going to. I'm enjoying my experience. I'm enjoying being self-directed. I want to come back for my arts classes. I want to come back for to be in a play or something like that. But I don't really want to come back and do the 8-hour-a-day grind of high school, which in reality is a very, very hard process. So it could change, but I think TK through probably 10th grade, I don't see anything changing. It's a great place for our kids to go, have security, have normalcy, have engaged adult interaction. I think that'll continue in America for a long time.
Yeah.
Good. I think we're all hoping for it and looking forward to that day.
Yeah.
Alexandra?
And over time, it may change the results that we see in our students. Like if we do continue to have these alternative formats of distance learning or online, like we have a school, independent academy, and they do Edgenuity, and that's all they do. And that's, like you said, the kids prefer it. They struggle with social issues or being on campus. What I'm seeing is that the kids that were struggling in terms of the conceptual part of the AP program, and the AP studio art program has also changed its standards a bit in the last year. We went from 29 pieces of art to 17 that are self-directed. So to some extent, the kids, in our standards have changed in that sense too, where they want kids to initiate and pursue and investigate and research coming from their own desire to do so. And I've definitely tried to instill that over these last few months with some of my seniors. And, it doesn't really matter what I come at them with. And I think I'm doing a great job with some of these forms of brainstorming and giving them worksheets to get them to guide themselves through the questions. They're digging their heels in to a large extent. But I think over time, this independent format of getting kids to be motivated and coming from kind of an internal, intrinsic force, it could evolve.
Well, that's interesting that it's affected it's not just the environment in which they're learning, but the whole curriculum sounds like it's sort of up for grabs or at least evolving, right? Under these extreme circumstances, and hearing about even the AP classes and those students and changing those. You, the AP art teachers, still adjudicate the art, right? Mm-hmm. And give the credits and or not, as the case may be. And are those AP students more motivated? I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit here. Are they more motivated than the non-AP students? They're taking that class for some reason. So
yeah, what I'm finding is that the younger ones that they're adapting to this new format of being concept based, because formalism and drawing from life or painting from life or painting realism has been kind of on the forefront of our curriculum, for what most of our career, Pam. I mean, I've been teaching 19 years, Pam's 25 years, and formalism and teaching shading and drawing and things like this have always been what we focused on, the elements and principles of art. But now it's ideas and it's concepts and it's connecting to the world and connecting to your own soul, your own heart, your own passion. We recently did a political posters piece, and some of my cohorts could not believe I was approaching the topic. Wow. I loved it. I was having a blast right up until the election. Then I just turned it completely off. I said, we're not talking about any of this. But it was a lesson in our Edgenuity. It was something that was district supported, and it was interesting to see how the kids responded and how they struggled with really forming an opinion or making a stance, taking a stance. It was
and then portraying that through their art. Yeah, that's fabulous. So let's jump over a little bit to another topic. Art competitions. Not that everything has to be a competition, but it's something that we support here at YubaSutterArts&Culture. Most of you are familiar with some of the programs. Poetry Out Loud, poetry recitation programs, Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, the Congressional Art Competition. There are other opportunities for students to submit work, literary work, or simply get up on a stage and recite, or submit creative writing for judging and consideration. I know in LA growing up, in high school, I was involved in theater competitions, one-act festivals, and high school theater festivals, and that kind of thing. And what about now during virtual times? I mean, Michelle, this is a little bit for you. We had a successful Poetry Out Loud program last year. We got a number of students that we helped with some coaching, trying to get them inspired to, commit to learn a poem. Can we do that now? Will we be able to Zoom into the classroom and talk about Poetry Out Loud and then get them to create videos?
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I know last year one of their biggest motivations was they got to compete in place of an essay. So like for them, that was the first thing they got interested in, and then they realized, wait, there's actual work in reciting poetry. But at the end of the day, like I heard so much positive feedback from students and parents. Like parents were like shocked. They're like, I never expected my child to do this. Like they hate school. Like they don't like school. They don't like English. Like they think it's hard. And to have them willingly compete in something was astounding to them. So I'm hoping this year students are open to it as well. We'll see. I have sophomores this year. They're doing more debate stuff, and maybe if some of them end up enjoying that, they're more willing to enter things like Poetry Out Loud.
Oh, fantastic! And just if you would just briefly, how much poetry is part of the various class levels that you teach? I'm sorry, I forget what grade levels you're involved with, but is there much poetry? Is there much literature? Is there creative writing? Must be part of it at some level.
One of the interesting things about distance learning is I've had to go back to my curriculum and kind of pick and choose what is it I want to impart on the kids, because I don't have time anymore to go through all the texts that the school has chosen out. I have to pick and choose, and what exactly do I want them to take out of it. So I've been trying to incorporate, like with my sophomores right now, they did a narrative essay. So we practiced some creative writing, even though it wasn't their final assessment would be an essay, kind of preparing them for that. I've been trying to sprinkle in like more art related type of work to help give them practice, so they don't feel like it's a test, it's a quiz, I have to like study. It's more, you're going to write about your summer, and you're going to use language that connects to the four of the five senses to help practice your imagery writing. So it's been interesting having to rework everything and include more art stuff because they like it.
Oh, I love that. So keep those pieces in mind when we come out and talk to you virtually about Scholastic Writing Awards, because they are welcome to submit any of those pieces that they've created for classroom assignments as part of Scholastic. So anybody else on the general topic of art competitions and pulling that off in these virtual times? Rebecca?
Well, so with I do one thing that's somewhat like poetry. I teach a songwriting class. And
perfect.
So, I'm going to encourage my songwriting kids to apply for Poetry Out Loud and Scholastic Art. It's different, obviously, and not every lyric writer, but we do talk about rhyme scheme and things like that. I would say, I just wanted to mention that music competitions have been little bit more complicated.
Sure.
Obviously, the usual competitions where you might get to perform with an orchestra or perform with a group of some sort have not been happening. So
Yeah.
it makes it difficult for the kids who really want that experience. I certainly find that there are certain kids that love competition and really thrive on it. And then there are other kids that are really shy away from it. So it's nice to, of course, have the crossover happen where you have some kid that's really shy or introverted and find their way through a competition. So Tri-County's competition,
Right.
good job of going online last year. But I had a really hard time convincing my kids to do it. Even though, it was still a competition. It was still a great job. I think that it was because it was much more public, or they thought it was because it was, I think it was on Facebook. So,
You're on social media. Wow.
yeah, and most of the time they're on social media anyway, but
Right, I know.
sometimes they get a little nervous about, and even that competition is typically public, which means that there are people watching you compete or perform as a competition, which is a great experience. So anyway, I think it's also educating our students that, we have a new format and it's going to be okay. So trying to work through that. It's a lot like what we were talking about earlier, that some kids thrive when they have to be self-motivated and some kids shut down. And so I know that we've all seen that. So trying to find a way to engage with distance learning, and also, having much less time than we usually do, or trying to do video lessons or something like that. We really have to choose our aims of the semester.
Sure. What about visual art competitions? I forget, Pam or Alexandra, have you all had students be part of the Scholastic art program, art awards? I think you've had submissions, right?
Indeed.
The Sutter County Museum, Jessica manages that part. We do the writing part, so no reason we can't.
We had a Halloween art contest on campus, and they were really excited about that. And
what was it? I'm sorry. What was it? Tell me again. I missed it.
Halloween art.
Oh, okay.
Competition, and they got really excited about that. And one of my students won second place.
Oh, fun.
Yay.
Said the proud teacher. Oh, wonderful. Well, we'll do our best to promote these programs and get the public and the students and hopefully you all on board to help promote them. And again, just another way to help students get recognition. And we kind of have a plan for how we're going to do it. So we'll definitely be in touch. Rebecca, you kind of touched on this, but the whole idea of any of the group activities, and I'm even thinking like the sad story of last March when all of this began, and Pam and her team from Yuba City High School had come in and hung. I know, I'm sorry to bring up this sad memory, but had hung the student art show in our gallery, home gallery here in Marysville, that week of St. Patrick's Day. And then that Friday was supposed to be the opening reception, and we had to shut down by, state and county mandate. And that was the end of any public activities for us. But that idea of a group art show is it's not quite the same as a performance, but it kind of is. It's this kind of big coming out party, and your parents come and family and friends, and you've got your art on the wall. And I just love seeing the students stand in front of their art and doing selfies, and it's just really special. And then you train, right? I mean, it's just fantastic. It's a group thing, and there's that. All of that engagement and sharing and companionship, and look what we did, that pride aspect of art. And certainly with the performing arts and whether it's theater or music, and not having that ensemble or that cast to work with, I don't know how you compensate for that during these peculiar times. But Alex, how do you, I do want to know this. Talk to us about teaching dance in a virtual world. Tell us about that whole experience of what you're doing at Arthur Murray in Boston.
Yeah, so we do have limited people coming actually to the studio right now. We have a set like capacity. And we have plenty of sanitizer, gloves available. Everyone's temperature is checked before they come in, all that stuff. Like, we take as many precautions as we possibly can. But we are still, people are still very cautious, and that is perfectly fine. We're willing to adapt. We found ways that we teach virtually. So we get on Zoom and so like right now, I could be teaching someone a dance lesson. And even if you're all alone, you have to learn the footwork on your own and stuff like that. So it's like flipping everything on its head a little bit, because if you don't have a partner, you don't get to practice that lead and follow, but you know your footwork then. And it kind of creates like this different like thought process almost. But yeah, we're still doing group classes and stuff. And we're trying real hard to get the students what they need, because it's not that we're a business, but our mission statement is to positively impact these people's lives. And the students need this for their happiness and just in self-fulfillment. Because otherwise they go to work and they come home and that's it. Because they're not going out can't hang out with friends in the park right now. You can't do a whole bunch of things. So we're really trying to create that space and trying to make it as safe as possible for everyone to do this.
What's the camera angle? So is it set up, and is it like a full length of you or the instructor?
I mean, it's just like this, and then I would just you could see my feet.
Oh, okay.
So I'd back up far enough and everything, and we try to make sure that they set up their camera likewise.
So it's not like you're way out in the middle of a ballroom and you're full length. So you're up close and personal, like
it's up close and personal. We get in so we can like watch their footwork, then we go back out and this is actually how you do it. Okay. Yeah. So
you're moving around, yeah. Kind of like when you were, you're like when you were tap dancing on that show the other night.
Yes. With
little inside joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. With your.
If you saw Slightly Batty, I was tap dancing.
Oh gosh. All right. So virtual dance instruction. Who knew, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, anything's possible. If Eric Whitaker, the great choral music composer, can bring together, I don't know, his last virtual choir was 20,000 people from around the world, all somehow melded together, making a beautiful noise. I figure anything's possible, including virtual dance instruction. So let's, hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I will just throw in here that our music and drama department have been putting together really nice videos where the kids do their own thing, but through the software and the melding of everything. Corey's been doing a great job, and Linda have been putting some really fun things out there. So the kids are getting an audience and they are performing. That group element is missing, but you know, they're still working toward delivering their pieces, and I think it's great.
Will there be a final product that'll be shared with the public? Do you know?
It's been on Facebook, so I'm sure the kids know where it is and parents know where it is.
Is that a public Facebook page, Yuba City High School, or do you know?
I'm not sure about that. We'll have to check.
I don't want to violate any. Is it? I'd love to. Let me know if you find out.
The two high schools actually works together, so we have our music people and their music people together too. And
the spook. But Linda Robinson's group.
Linda Robinson,
with their choir too. I'm not sure. I just saw some.
Okay, and it's Dave Harris out at River Valley. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave, and then of course Corey Kirstang
with the kid, because the kids, their faces are in it and everything.
So so it may. That's why I asked. And I mentioned this. I'll do a little promo for something we've done with our Applause Kids program. Alex Mazarol, who some of you know, a local performing artist who's come back to run our Applause Kids program, has put together a virtual musical with 7 to 14-year-olds called Super Happy Awesome News. And it was written during the pandemic, and it's absolutely stunning. It's a 30-minute piece, and we're premiering it Saturday at 6 p.m., free, of course, on Facebook and our YouTube channel. And little glimpses I've seen, you know how it is. You're around performing students and artsy students, and when it works, it's really cool, and it's really working well. So that's what made me think of it, Pam, when you brought up, and Alex, you brought up the show that Linda's working on. And that's why I was hoping to see what they're doing at the high school level, but if I can't, I can't. But you will be able to see ours because they all signed waivers and parental consent forms. So we're legal and legit. But if you get a minute at some point, if you're not available Saturday at 6, but check out our production of Super Happy Awesome News. My son's a music teacher in Washington, D.C. He told us about it a few months ago. He's doing a production with his students about a week after ours. So we're very excited to compare and contrast. So anyway, exciting. Well, I'm glad to hear that those students are having that performing opportunity. Such as it is, our students each did the same thing, individual videos stitched together by our director, and it's going to be wonderful.
I think that's what's so silver lining is that, what is possible is becoming, and it's really interesting. At the college, James did a play here, and it was
a whodunit. Yeah, we watched it.
Yeah, it was great, and it's like just using a lot of creativity to have like a Zoom play. And I'm looking forward to see how you guys do it. I would love to. I saw a little bit of Corey sent me a little bit of his stuff, but the only problem with a lot of the music things is you have to have questions from all the parents that have the kids on there. So some of my kids, they just want to keep it private. So if anyone want to, then you mean you'll have, only the parents get to see it, right?
Yeah, that's why we did all that up front, because we knew we wanted it to share with the public. Right. So they knew that right from the get-go.
It's just really amazing to see what is possible. Like we just never thought like this a year ago.
Yeah.
You think it had to be in person. You didn't think that you could teach dancing lessons or teach. I have students from around the world now. It's kind of crazy. I have a student in Germany. I have a student in China, another one in New York. Yeah, because it's kind of cool to be like, oh, cool, like, that can be a thing.
International. Joe, talk to us a little bit about early childhood education. I know others of you have that experience as well. You've talked about the kind of the early stages with the little ones, 2 to 5 year olds, and how they respond to this virtual learning environment. You gave us a glimpse, but tell us more.
Well, virtually, I'm not sure there are any programs. I do a live show every Friday morning for the children on my Facebook page, but other than that, I don't think there is any early childhood live stream stuff.
I thought you were doing something. I thought the Playseum had facilitated something.
We did do some when it first started with COVID, we did send home packages with our flip families, and would do little videos and stuff to show them how to use the materials. But we quit doing that just because it was so unwieldy. Parents would have to come and get the stuff. So now, and we've now that we've lightened up, we do have on-site classrooms again. So I am teaching my Thursday class with the parents and the children, and we're doing the same as the other teachers. Everybody's temperature is taken. You're wearing your mask, wash your hands. But with 2 to 5 year olds, they actually go through a certain progression, which is, you can actually watch them grow, because there goes from scribbles to circles to parallel lines to something with a horizon. Yeah, it's a measurable stages for art. You can watch them learn. You guys have to actually try and figure out, are they learning anything? Whereas I can go, yeah, they learned something today. So
that's great.
I don't think I made it past parallel lines.
My horizon keeps shifting. I don't.
So is it good to get back in the classroom a little bit? Can you keep? Yeah.
Yes, it is very good to be back in the classroom. For what I do, trying to do it virtually is almost it's really hard, because you have to have the engagement with the kids to know that it's working. And it is nice, and the parents are really appreciative, because I'm sharing with them things that they can do at home with their children, because they can't go to the multiplex or any of those places where you usually would take children. They're all closed. Even the playgrounds are closed. So yeah, teaching them some of the activities to engage children, and explaining to them, with young children, just give them stuff and let them make what they want. Quit trying to teach them something. Say, here's a bunch of stuff. What can you make? And then ask them, what did you make? And that works a whole lot better with young children.
No, I like it. And how about keeping masks on the little ones?
No,
I was going to say, people have said, how do you teach to kids with masks on. I said, well, I probably don't wear them.
5 and under will not wear them. And honestly,
Okay.
I wouldn't want them to wear them because they would trade them. Because
No,
that's how they do. Oh, hey, come home with a mask you've never seen before. It's like, where'd you get that?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a frightening thought.
Well, then they think
Thanks
it's just a handy Kleenex,
Oh,
Oh my gosh. So teaching the little ones, obviously, in any art form or any subject matter is obviously such a different process than higher education. Any thoughts about that? It's just, yeah, Rebecca, please. Yeah, how early do you start teaching?
Sorry.
Rebecca, how early do you start teaching?
Sorry, did you say
students?
something, Joe? So I used to, when I lived in Boston, actually, I had a job teaching 2-year-olds little
Wow.
lessons and violin lessons.
Really?
So obviously that's a different demographic where that's going to have that thought to, so we would do a whole, prep. So basically 6 months of prep before they even touch the instrument with songs and dances and stuff like that. But again, it's kind of like completely different than what Joe's doing, which is, bringing kids that may not have as much support from the family. So Joe's doing everything. I know from experience that when you have a Suzuki kid, we require the parent to be a part of the process, which that's the thing with virtual learning from what I understand. If you have a parent that's helping you read, that's helping you draw, that's helping you do all these things, you don't have a problem. That's great. The ones that are having a problem are the ones where the parents are like, they need the help of the professionals to really help them to do the circles, to go to the lines, like to do all that stuff. So in Suzuki teaching, like I said, it becomes like a specialized thing. So, someone has to have that thought. So I am teaching a 4-year-old, and we were doing completely online for in March, April, May. And again, lots of help from the parent. And if the parent understands everything, then we're fine, no problem. I make a video for them to practice with every week. But of course, it's so much easier in person because I can actually like tell them what to do and move their hands or if something's wrong. So I have several that are still, most of my students are still Zoom, so online only. Several 6-year-olds. I only have a couple that are under 6. But it's just in this area, people don't have that idea as much. But in a larger city, for example, that was a thing.
Yeah,
So
sure.
people would start at 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. Dr. Suzuki started at 2 always in Japan, but usually in the US, we start at 4. Yeah.
Okay.
But most people here start at 6 or 8 or.
Are they potty trained? Are they potty trained at 4? I forget.
you're hoping.
Yeah.
They're hoping, right? Well, I'm just checking. That could be inconvenient during practice time.
Yep.
Joe, did you have something else? Or?
No. The whole potty training and violins, I just never.
Oh God. Well, hey.
I had a student a parent who incorporated potty training with their violin practice. I thought it was really funny. But again, if you can make it work, go for it. So again, it's more like just like what Joe is saying, you're teaching the parent how to teach at home if you're not in there with them all the time. So.
Yep.
So this next question, it's probably more designed to imagine, if you will, we're back to a normal time, years from now or whenever we're back like we were 2 years ago. Talk about how the arts address a way to create and connect to others, away from computers that we're also reliant on, and away from social media. Now that it's, of course, now we're all doing teaching on computer, virtual teaching. What's it like under, say, normal circumstances? What do you see? Does that happen? Is that a fantasy that it gives these students something else beyond the computer? It's any anecdotes or observations you can share about that?
Social media. Well, yeah. When you say connect, I just think of students thinking about their place in their home, in their community, in their state, in their world. How do you share your arts, whether it's singing or dancing or playing an instrument or writing a song or a story or creating an artwork? And I will use our ceramics teacher as a wonderful example. And she already talked about how the next project, even online, is designing your mural tile. And we're going to, even online, create a mural. And she has created with her advanced students 2 tile murals that are on displays at fish hatcheries locally.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So as individuals and as a group, as part of the artwork and as a collective artwork, it's something that is there that reflects the site and the stories and that sort of thing. So there's, I'm sure, lots of ways for kids to connect. It's what the arts are really great at.
I like it. I like it. Other ways it creates connection and diversion from computer and social media.
Well, you know, my hope, and I hope I'm not being too idealistic here, is that when we are able to, that people will flock back into those synchronous experiences, the being able to participate in a work of art together in the same room. You know, ideally one being presented by individuals, but of course we have all different types of art happening there. You know, with how we saw people flocking back to the idea of going to restaurants, of desiring to go to, you know, religious services, things like that. I think people crave the community that comes from synchronous, immediate art, and they want the opportunity to do that. My hope is that we see almost a renaissance of those experiences, because it has become so foreign to being able to experience for what will probably be over a year by the time we're able to do it again. I mean, looking specifically at theater. But I would love to see people jumping back into that, especially as patrons for all of our benefits. Seeing people flock back to purchase tickets to see community theater, high school music, what have you, would just be an excellent thing. And it certainly provides that immediate human connection interaction.
Yeah, great.
I have a quick one on this too. Just because, like, I'm thinking in the literal sense here, coming from a dance teacher's perspective, especially a ballroom dance teacher, is that we have couples that come in and they're super busy doing their things on Zoom every day, working remotely or working in the office, and then they come together for this moment in time to actually separate from social media, separate from the workspace, and they actually get to connect and that way. And they don't even have to talk to each other. That's the beauty about dancing, is like they connect through action and reaction. And I just think like that's kind of like, I think students have found that they are learning and kind of like engaging more as a couple that way. So I think it's kind of interesting and fun, and I'm glad that we can provide that opportunity for them to like step out of that social media bubble for a second and into a world where they don't have to necessarily talk and they can just connect.
Yeah, I was going to say something almost the same. Like, you know, when you see this, like the documentary, The Social Dilemma and things like that, where you're like, wow, social media is so huge. And right now we're all, you know, thankfully we have this opportunity to be online. Otherwise, you know, we might not be working. So I'm grateful. But also, like, I find myself just like dying to practice, like, so to speak. I'm just love not being online for a little while, like and I'm hoping that I'm able to communicate that to my students, like a moment of just being able to play your instrument and connect with like the composer of that instrument or of that piece that we're playing, or being able to just improvise and create and write something of your own and be a part of that creative process that's totally away from, I mean, we had a lot of power outages and I can still practice. I can still play even without, and it's just like what Alex is saying, like having that kind of, I think we need more of these like visceral connecting experiences that like a lot of our young people if they've grown up with a phone in their hands or something like that, they need to is more than anything, they need to have tangible experiences with other people and other instruments so they can really connect. So I feel like that's and I love the idea of a renaissance that Matt's saying. That I think people will start to realize, wow, look at all this that was in the community and I didn't experience, and maybe I need to open up my heart to how can I experience art in a better way or a greater way, as we're allowed to.
That's great.
I just wanted to say that we're really missing our critiques in art class. Critique in person was so wonderful, and trying to critique on Zoom. I've been able to incorporate a Jamboard, so they write little sticky notes and then they post it on each other's work. But it's been happening with my advanced kids offline, so they're connecting with each other and critiquing each other individually.
Really? That's great to hear.
So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, excellent. Matt, did you have something else? Or?
Oh, I was just going to bring. I also teach graphic design at MCAA, and I just started doing in-person critiques today. I tried them as a group collective, and it was very, very hard because people don't want to speak up in front of a group in a format like this. There's something about having their voice heard in front of a digital class that everyone just wants to sort of remain closed off. But I tried putting the students in two-person breakout rooms and found that to be very successful. Students open up a little bit more in small groups. And I think there's a key there in providing them almost like baby steps of reintegration into social interaction, because so much of what they've been receiving educationally and artistically has been fed to them. It's something they have to consume from this screen. And so getting them used to being active in that way again, providing thoughts of their own, feedback of their own and whatnot in those smaller things, it seemed to work. I'm going to actually assess the quality of how it went on Friday when I talk with the class again, but we'll see.
We submit our assignments on a Google slide. So then they present, and with that, they're excited about it, and they miss presentations. Are we going to present this one? Are we going to get to say, so they have an easier time kind of saying, well, this is what I've done, and this is why I've done it. But commenting on each other's work or giving suggestions is a bit harder. And of course, their screens are usually off regardless.
Yeah.
I don't allow it. I think that they don't count. Because otherwise I can't see they're playing. So I just know you're just not present unless I can see your face. And this is just like putting my foot down. And this is an elective class. You chose to be here, so that means you're going to show up.
So you've all kind of touched on this next question, and I may have worded it. I probably could have worded it better, but how has that general lack of, I think, in-person interactions, because you have live interactions, you're talking to them real time, but of in-person interactions with your students and then between the students, how has that affected the way you teach, or what did it take to get you to where you are today? Now you're all experienced veterans of online teaching. Talk about that process of the transition you all had to make. I just can't imagine. Any thoughts about that? What it took?
Well,
Michelle,
I know in the spring it was a little easier because I had my students for the most of the year.
Right. Yeah, you had a relationship.
So there was a relationship, and I had new students come in this year who had never met me and to meet me through Zoom, and then a lot of them don't like to have their cameras on, or they'll have them on and they'll show their forehead but not their face. So it was really hard to create those relationships with students that you need to have for them to be able to learn. And now that we started back in hybrid, there's a huge difference. During our Zoom classes, I'll get 1 or 2 students volunteering. And now during our hybrid classes, when we're actually meeting in person, they're talking, which I didn't know I would miss so much, having students talk during class. But it's nice to be able to see that relationship is still something I could build. And obviously with online, it was a lot harder. and now that we're in person, it's been a lot easier. But I think that lack of interaction really stunted that the fact that I missed a whole quarter with them. They missed out on all that education because they didn't have any buy-in with me. They didn't know me. They didn't know anything about me. And, you know, it's easy to pretend the person in the screen is just a screen and not a person. So,
yeah. I had never met any of these students. I started at MCAA this year in August. So none of them knew me, and I didn't even have context of me as like, oh, my brother or sister or friend had you last year. And so I have found for the first time ever, I've every single class, every single day, I check in with every single kid. It takes 10 minutes to call roll on some days because but honestly, I feel it's valuable. I mean, the content that I'm delivering, like I said before, is arbitrary. I want to create the relationships and create a safe space for the students to take risks, try new things. And so, yeah, that's become a big part of it. And I think it's something that I didn't used to do that. I used to sort of call roll by scanning the room, counting heads and saying, okay, everyone's here. Let's get down to business. But now that opportunity to really look at a kid, say, okay, how you doing, Susie, or what have you? I think that's created some of that dynamic to have those positive relationships. And I hope that continues back into live interaction.
Wow.
I would do something similar. I started doing like a fun Friday where, because at first, you know, I think the kids were a little bit like, you know, we're just on a Zoom or we're just on a whatever. And so I'd be like, okay, you know, how was your week? What was like, let's just name one, you're the best thing that happened your week. And sometimes they're like, nothing good, you know, like, so I get them to say like, well, it's beautiful outside. Look at the leaves, you know, or like, then I would have them do a share out. Like, so, hey, when am I ever going to be in your bedroom? So show one favorite thing. And I mean, for example, most of my students are actually in their bedrooms. So I'll say, show one thing from your house. And so one of them, you know, then I'll say like a favorite stuffy. And, you know, they're high school kids. So that's, you know, they got to be pretty cool. But they could show their favorite stuffy or their favorite thing that they have in their room. And that tells me a lot about them. So then I could really like, especially the new students, I could really connect. I was like, oh, wow, you're showing me, you know, this model airplane that you made. Like, well, that tells me that you really like technical stuff, or it helps me to learn how to teach them. If I can see what they like and what they would like to share. And then also because it can be just I'm talking and no one says anything the whole time, unless I can go around the room and say, okay, everybody play something, or everybody, and I do that on Fridays too, where they perform for each other every Friday. But yeah, I think what Matt's doing is like same kind of idea of like, okay, how you doing? Like Halloween, we do creepy sounds all month, but well, you got it. I'm sorry, we're playing.
Oh, I'm gonna get out my sound effects records. This is cool. I love it.
Yeah, if I played cello, I'd make creepy sounds.
The whole story I'll play for you, but if you want, I have steps. We have a door. The violin right there. Oh, it's great. And I have to. It's Halloween, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just love seeing them every day, and I let them know that, and I let them know that I miss them. I'm doing my art along with them. So I try and model what I do, and I ask them what they're doing, and I say, show me. I don't even have to see your face. Just hold it up to the camera. I want to see what you're doing. And I spend time talking to them as I take roll, which I never did before. It's scan the room, mark it off, get to the activity. And I really miss being able to walk around and see what they're doing. So I said, you don't have to show me. Angle your camera down so I can see you drawing. That's what I miss. And so we're all teachers and we know how to connect, is just doing it in this flat, sitting in one place, talking all the time. I say, I love to talk. I've never talked this much in my life. So I try and get them to talk. I try and get them to show me what they're doing. I once picked up my computer when we were doing landscapes. I said, we're going to walk around the quad. Here we go. I'm going to take my computer. And some kid goes, I missed that tree. I remember that tree. And you can hear how much they want to come back. So you try anything.
Yeah.
You know, I would juggle if it helped them. Joe, can you teach me to juggle?
I think we've all been working so hard, and
So
you know,
hard.
Shelby asked a question of if this is harder on the teacher, and I would
No.
say yes. I mean, if I really did everything that I needed to do, it's 12-hour day. Every day would be a 12-hour day, and you know, that's video, asynchronous learning, then the daily live meets, and then you know, just reworking the curriculum so that it fits with the format. Sometimes my own work gets lost in all of that. Sometimes my housework gets lost in all of that.
And you have to individually adjust the curriculum. There's no
Well, they've given
higher
us
authority that's helped with that, or it's on you?
they've given us Edgenuity, but the Edgenuity is not completely aligned, and I had to kind of go in and restructure each course so that it actually applied to the topics that we're working on, because it's mostly an art history course.
Okay.
So I pulled the elements and principles, and we're just going to do that. But the new standards, I mean, Pam and I went to a conference, 2 years ago, and then the framework.
It's been a couple of years, right? It's where they
And they're
revamped.
Last November,
Just
we
last year
went
they
to
redid the whole
Sacramento.
thing.
So
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the framework just came out this year. And,
Okay.
and when we were at conference, I mean, you could just see teachers' heads exploding. Like, what? I don't, you know, if
Wow.
you haven't been through a master's program or you know, teaching AP for half a century, it's really hard to wrap
Oh
your
my
head
God.
around. You know, how
Wow.
do you get them to express a concept and to
Yeah.
be self-driven in their work? So
Hmm.
yeah, it's really hard on the teachers, and I know everybody's suffering, and the parents, you know, I definitely feel I am not a parent myself, so I don't know what it's like, but I do hear that it's hard, and the kids are depressed.
Sure. Yeah.
But you know, we're working our little hearts out in
Oh, yeah.
150%.
Are there many other online resources for you? Rebecca mentioned her. I don't know if you dreamed that up yourself, but your technique for engaging with the students, or is there?
YouTube is great.
Is it just okay? Is it just that simple? All right.
A lot of
Really?
there's a lot of Facebook groups, like when this first happened in March.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So yeah, like the private Facebook groups. So the Suzuki community like reached out and started this like Suzuki distance learning. I learned so much from these. I really, really appreciate like all of my. I didn't know about Zoom even. Like, oh, you know, I'd heard about it in like one meeting or something, and you know, Skype and things like that. I was like, I don't know if it's really going to work, but Zoom actually works pretty well. It does. So, and a lot of like teachers would share. There's music educators sharing online learning. There's all these different groups that people will say, hey, I tried this. My district's doing that.
Okay.
I also like, you know, other colleagues in the area that we've chatted about what's working for you. I like to do group lessons too for my Suzuki lessons. And some of my colleagues prefer not to do that, but I like that. So that taught me a lot for getting ready and to what we're doing now, because I had been doing group lessons, and then they tell you all the tricks, like, oh, this is how you can play together. You just mute everybody except yourself, so they can just hear you, for example. Or you have one leader and things like that. And then how do you deal with certain issues that come up? Well, the Facebook groups saved my life. And then they have a lot of ideas.
There's a market for this new format, and I'm hearing a lot with the online design teachers that there isn't really a good textbook resource, you know, how to teach these classes, and my wheels are spinning. Like, I think the online thing is a whole market, and I know Rebecca has already started kind of opening some lessons with online now.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like automated lessons and stuff?
Just like private, or you know, just not for teachers, but.
Oh no, I mean, so in the beginning of the pandemic, I lost a lot of private students. I think a lot of people did, and I didn't take it personally or anything like that. It was more just like, you know, there were so many people overwhelmed, some adults that lost their jobs. You know, a lot of things happened. So I actually lost 19 students in the end of March and April, which is a lot.
Wow.
I had started some like automated lessons like 3 years ago. Just I can't reach everybody, and so it was just an idea. And through that is how people started finding me. Like I didn't even try to find them. They just started saying, oh, actually, could I have Zoom lessons instead? And that's where I got this like German student. And this, so I have 5 students that are in the rest of the world, which is cool. Some of them were like former students that moved away and they said, oh, you know, this is a thing now. We can do this. And you think, oh, it's true. Like that moved to Auburn and she doesn't want to commute anymore. So, and of course, like that's way too far to commute. But anyway, it's interesting to see how we're all developing. I mean, educators are naturally flexible and moving and evolving as we go. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, we're using smart music. I think you had asked me about that before. That's something that the district adopted, but very helpful with being able to teach ensembles.
Well, it's great hearing that these resources do exist. I assumed. I just didn't know you were getting them from so many different directions. So, of course, it probably wasn't like that when it first happened mid-March, was it? That first first couple of months. Oh,
and I'm lucky that my
can't
sister.
imagine.
Oh, sorry. My sister is also a strings teacher in Vancouver, in Canada. So we've been exchanging. I mean, at any of my clips, we talk. I talk with Corey. I talk with Helen. I talk with all the other music educators in this area. So we can be like, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's working, what's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I keep thinking about this idea that some of you have brought up though about having this classroom of students on the screen and some of them are not showing their faces. This makes me crazy in some of the webinars I'm on where you see a name and no individual picture or they just, you think they're there, you hope they're there listening and taking notes, but it's got to be kind of strange. But thank you for leaving your video on. Hey, changing subjects abruptly. So have any of you ever worked with any child prodigies in any art form? Any young Picassos or
I would say Madeline is definitely one. Madeline Templeton.
Yeah, that's right. She was Madeline Templeton. Some of you may know that name. She's created a number of just spectacular, large-scale murals, both for YubaSutterArts&Culture here in Yuba and Sutter counties, and she's all over Roseville and Rockland with murals, and just does a magnificent job. She just finished
the most recent.
She
did one in Sacramento on J Street.
Yeah.
But I've had
Madeline Templeton. Look her up. She's all over social media, and you can see some of her work. And right here in Marysville, down at First and B Street, we've got the 125-foot mural she did for the homage to the Japanese Americans. It's good to see that somebody has a cat. But do any of you ever watch evening news and hoping that one of the broadcasters' cats will appear? It's like a thing. There's several we know, and we go, William, where's the cat? Lisa, there's your cat. Anyway, thank you for having an animal on the stream.
She's
That's all right.
It's past my bedtime.
We've been Zoom bombed on a couple of our calls with some of our cats. So
my old dog has already came in and went to bed. He's over there.
So Madeline Templeton certainly is in that category, and you saw that talent when she was in your classes, and she's gone on to become a working artist. Any others? Rebecca, I know the Brashears or others.
I would just speak to the Suzuki philosophy. So I've had several. We call them perfect storms. So the Suzuki philosophy is that nurturing positivity element that we teach. And so obviously, if you've got kids starting at 2 or 4 and they've been playing for a long time, and if you've got an amazing parent that nurtures them and encourages them and makes sure that they're practicing, it's going to happen, right? Yeah. So it's going to work out, right? So we teach, and the whole philosophy is really like making better people through music, right? So sometimes it just happens, and it actually happens more often than you would think, where a kid's on time and doing their thing, and gosh, that they just accomplish the instrument. Fantastic. So the Suzuki, let's say, suggestion is that they not be put out to the world too early in life. So the suggestion is not to market them as prodigy, but actually to let them be a child and live their life. And so that's our like kind of officially as a Suzuki community what we do. So it's up to the parents. Sometimes the parents say, no, we've done all this and they sound quite good, and so we're going to push them out there. And
sounds like Judy Garland syndrome or something, you know.
Well,
you
yes,
know?
many. I don't even want. I don't even like to mention. I even have some students now that are very young and quite advanced, and instead of like making that a big deal, you just okay, they're just it's a discipline. So you're learning a discipline. Yeah. This is something that's hard work, and a lot of the kids that they'll accomplish the instrument. They're playing beautifully, and so many of them are not becoming musicians. So that's okay, so the idea is really to make beautiful people that appreciate art. So whether or not they decide to do that as a career or not, and sometimes you have parents that push it really hard, and I feel like it might be going the wrong direction if you do that, In
a lot of our field, I feel like the prodigy idea is almost inappropriate because they have to learn. There's so much to learn, and then if they kind of if they hit fame too early, they get addicted to that fame, or they're doing it from the wrong place or the wrong reason, and then it feeds a different part that's really not about the art or about the exploration of the profession. I don't know if I'm saying that.
It's counterproductive at some point. Yeah.
And you'll have your Beethovens and things like that, but for the most part, children are children, and then as they grow, they mature and they become better. They master their craft.
Yeah.
They have to make it somehow their own. I've had several parents that, like, from a very early age, they're like, "You're going to play, and you're going to just keep playing your whole life, or you're going to be a musician." And oftentimes it puts the wrong kind of pressure, so the kid actually doesn't want to become a musician, right? Yeah. Whereas the opposite happens, where they're like, "There is no way you're going to become a musician," and like, there's no other way they are not going to become it. Because it's the child has to figure out their calling on their own. And this whole idea of the daemon, that's like in Greek times, that your talent is separate from you, and whatever that talent is, it's drawing you towards your calling. I don't know. I just believe in this idea that that's something that you're meant to do, and that could be a literary art, that can be a visual art, that can be anything. It could be being a doctor, whatever it is. And so I try to teach finding your joy, finding what's going to bring you motivation.
Well, that's great. You've all touched on that in one way or another, I think, during the conversation, and letting the students sort of evolve and progress at their own pace, and while trying to at least stay on task with certain requirements in the process, right, of learning a skill, and you all do a wonderful job of that. Gee, 90 minutes goes quickly, doesn't it? What haven't we talked about that we should cover before we wrap up here? Any general thoughts on teaching art, surviving COVID? Feel free to jump in.
One thing I'll say that I don't think we've touched on, and I don't think gets said enough, especially in a small community, this is important. Encouraging people to patronize educational arts as it occurs, even when your child isn't in it. And that, I think, includes music performances, theater, visual arts shows, what have you. If it's going on, young people nowadays, I feel, because of the amount of input they have from a variety of sources, YouTube learning, and so there's so much talent out there. And honestly, it can be so much more dynamic and engaging than what you may be paying for, I don't know, let's say down in Sacramento or San Francisco or something like that. Come and see art in the area, especially once it starts back up again, for real. But patronize those sources. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised and really become more engaged in the community for it. I think that's huge.
Oh, well said, Matt. Thank you. It's that live experience is irreplaceable. Yep. Whether it's an art gallery opening or a theater experience or music, and seeing students and young people, it's just so gratifying. Anybody else? Final thoughts?
Hmm.
No pressure.
We said a
No
lot.
pressure.
We said a lot. Thanks for inviting me, David.
All right. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Me.
We've enjoyed it a lot, and a great big thank you to you all for keeping the arts alive for our students during these very challenging times. We've all reinvented ourselves, I think, to a great extent, and we've learned a lot in the process. Right? We really appreciate your time and support and all your ongoing work on behalf of the arts in our community. I look forward to continuing to work with each and every one of you, and I know our paths cross many times during the course of the year. And Alex, thanks for beaming in from Boston, hometown boy, off to seek his fame and fortune in the world. So, when are the theaters going to open in Boston or New York? Is it?
The earliest that they're saying is June. That's the Broadway call. We had some.
Broadway.
We had some in August that were outdoor theaters that tried to do some stuff, but
Sure.
too cold now for outdoors, so June it is.
We'll wait.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to the audience for tuning in with us live here on Facebook and YouTube, and don't forget you can watch the instant replay of this on Facebook or go to the YubaSutter Arts YouTube channel and take a look at it there. So. We usually get pretty good response to these programs. The conversation series has been great, and I look forward to reading the comments afterwards. I can't do it during the show, or I'll get distracted, and forget what I'm doing. I'd be remiss if I didn't remember our incredible YubaSutter Arts and Culture team: Abby Cecina, Shante Arroyo, who's been behind the scenes making us all look good, and of course Sue Grau. Their technical skills and expertise make these programs possible. So keep an eye on what's going on in the community. Lots of things coming up in the virtual realm, but we're all excited to get back out there and make it real again real soon. So watch YubaSutter Arts on Facebook and look at our website, YubaSutterArts.org, and call us if there's anything you don't see that we can help you with. So until next time, signing off, I'm David Reed. Great to see you all, and thanks again.
Thanks,
Good night.
David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.